This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm Charli McConnell, your host, and today we have Dr. Christina Paul. Dr. Paul is a board certified internal medicine MD physician with experience and training in the UK, Canada, and the US. She now runs Extend Medical, a functional and longevity concierge practice that helps busy people get to the root of their health issues, boost their energy, and stay healthy for the long haul. Dr. Paul, welcome to the Hype Squad.
Thank you, Charli, for having me on. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited you're here. We talked before we recorded, and I told you on that call that I could get on a soapbox about health and women's health and hormones and all this stuff. So anytime I get an opportunity to talk more about this, I get really, really excited. So I'm excited for today's conversation.
Yes, as am I. So much to share.
So let's start with, first of all, functional medicine is a very trendy term right now. If you're anywhere on social media or just anywhere in general. So explain to me and anyone listening, what's the difference between functional medicine and traditional medicine?
So, functional medicine really is just a different lens of looking at your health versus traditional healthcare. Typically, when you go to a traditional physician, healthcare physician, you're coming to them with a symptom and they're looking to identify a solution for that symptom. And it's most of the time, it's just with one organ system. So, for example, if you have a racing heart, you will go see the heart doctor who might fix the racing heart, give you something for that. Functional medicine really dwells on the idea that there is a interconnection between all of your body systems. So instead of it being organ specific, it's about your body systems. And it's also understanding that each body system doesn't act on its own. There needs to be this one harmony between each of them underlying. Your metabolism needs to be in check. Your biological systems need to be in check. And not just that, a lot of your lifestyle plays into it, a lot of your emotional wellness. It all drives it. And then if I go back to my initial example about a racing heart, for example, you could stop the heart from racing, or you could just take this huge step back and you can say, why is my heart racing to begin with? So look at the root cause of that. Is it because I'm stressed? Is it because I'm not getting enough sleep? Is it because I'm drinking something that's toxic to me? Just like a whole host of factors, but it's really just digging deep and uncovering the root cause of that.
I love that. I'm making all these notes because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have things I want to come back to. And I have a medical background. I'm a registered nurse. I always did labor and delivery. And even without that background, I think about my own experience, my parents, people I know. You go in for a racing heart, to use your example, you get on a medication, you treat the racing heart, but then you have this whole list of side effects potentially from the medication you took to stop the racing heart. So now you replace the racing heart with night sweats or difficulty sleeping, nausea, vomiting, I think about my parents, for example, who my stepdad is on a whole list of medications that are more than likely, most of them are just treating the symptoms from the other more important medications he was given to take. So I think that description is really, really helpful. Um, Explain to me, because some of the other terms that I've heard is holistic, homeopathic, things like those two words are the first ones that come to mind. How would those compare to functional medicine?
So I think functional medicine has a element of, so it's holistic just means looking at the whole picture, at least in my mind. And
Okay.
so I think functional medicine does that. And then homeopathy is a part of functional medicine. So it's about, when I think, and homeopathy in general can be looked at from taken in different ways. But when I think about it, I think about identifying natural ways to bring you balance, because at the end of the day, that's what functional medicine is trying to do. It's trying to bring you balance, because our bodies are equipped to handle stress, trauma, toxins, whatever it is, but in very small quantities. If it's a constant impact, then that's when you're going to need additional support. And so to bring you balance, utilizing homeopathic factors are going to be very useful. Now, I do also actively practice acute care, acute internal medicine in the hospital, things like that. And so it's not that we never use medications, because if we go back to a racing heart, if it's dangerously high, I'm going to need to control it before I look at to say, well, what's driving it to begin with. But in the meantime, I don't want your heart to stop because it's racing.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so it's about knowing when to use it, but it's also about saying, well, hey, let's find out why this is happening to restore balance if we can. So just to your point where, your parents are experiencing some side effects of medications, because at the end of the day, the medications are very targeted. They're made to create one problem. But if it's a result of something else and you quiet one factor, there might be other problems that build up. So not only are you experiencing the side effect of the medication, because at the end of the day, they're not perfect. Some
Mhm.
of them are life-saving, they're excellent. I deal with them all the time, but you still wanna do as much as you can to bring that balance, because what we're all working to do is we want to live well. We already know we're living longer, but what we're all striving to do is to live well. And I think it's more important in today's society is because we're working harder for what we're doing. And so when you work this hard and your timeline is short or your timeline is long, but you're getting deranged, then you're not giving, you need to work as hard on yourself as you did on your work or your family and whatever it is.
Yeah.
And what I always tell my patients and their families.
Yeah, I think quality is it should be the most
Exactly.
important thing. I have so many things I want to touch on about what you just said. So what I'm glad I listed like the holistic and homeopathic ideas, because I do think those words are used a lot by people who don't really understand, myself included, what they really mean, right? So when I think of holistic, I hear people use that term a lot of like, when I use that, I think very granola, right? Like, I don't want any medications. Give me some
Crunchy.
oils and some witchcraft, and I'll make it work. Not that there's not a place for that. Like, do you? But I also think from the perspective I'm hearing from you is you just have a bigger tool belt. Like,
Yes.
you're not just doing holistic, you're not just doing homeopathy. Like, you can also prescribe medications if needed. And you said something about the stress. Stress is normal. I say all the time, anxiety at a certain level is necessary, because it's your body communicating with you. Like, something's not working, and we're sending you smoke signals, or we're sending you signs. Now, granted, there are varying levels of that, and some people do need medication. I'm not discounting that whatsoever. But just like to what you said, the stress is necessary. And I think you can't live a life without stress. Like, it has to happen, or it does happen. But I also think about, so my daughter Sailor has epilepsy, and I think about that when we were going through the journey at the very beginning of like getting her on medication. My husband was very against it, thinking we don't just need to throw medicine. I have a medical background, so I'm like, look, this is serious stuff. Like, yes, we do. And we got so much advice. I don't even want to use that term. Input is a better word, of like diet changes, which that is useful for a lot of people, cutting out certain food groups, which again, that's diet, things of that nature. And I had to just like close my ears. Like, I need medication for this. I'll deal with everything else, but right now I just need her seizures to stop. So I've seen both sides of like the
Mhm.
medicine's not always the best idea, or it's not the best thing, and then sometimes it's absolutely necessary. um God, I could go on and on about that. Okay, I want to circle back for a second because before I get on too many soapbox about the the science of it, I want to hear a little bit more about your journey if you're willing to share of how you got into functional medicine, why you're passionate about it. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think before I even knew what functional medicine was, again, so when you think about functional medicine, you do natural, it is inevitably something that focuses on a lot of natural implementation. And growing up, my parents were very big Whole Foods people. Not sure how they knew it back in the day, but they just did. They just said, if it's, if you want meat, don't eat the fake meat, eat the real meat. Because, it was at one point it was trendy, or it was thought to be healthy to go vegetarian. But then there was all these artificial meats coming into the market and things like that. Anyway, so they were big Whole Foods people. So I think from a young age that was ingrained into me. And I mean, I probably had I probably, worked too hard, things like that from a very young age. And then even in undergrad, I did nutritional sciences when I learned how much nutrition impacts your mood, your weight, and things like that. And that's how like the early days started. And then as I went through medical school, you're not really thinking about all of this. You're not thinking about how to manage your life because you're in this peak stress, like, got to get it done.
Survival. Yeah.
And when I started practicing, I was put into this unique position where I started building a practice, but I was actually in transition. So as you first introduced, I've kind of moved a little bit from Canada, USA, England, and things like that. So I was in the midst of a move. So I didn't want my practice. I didn't want to attract too many people to the practice because I didn't want to then break those relationships. Anyway, it naturally gave me more time to spend with people. And then I took back all my principles of early learning with like Whole Foods and knowing the basics, and was able to teach people a lot of lifestyle related factors. So my practice was it was focused in metabolic health even back then. And it was a lot of heart disease patients, obese patients, high blood pressure patients. And because I had the time, even though I was utilizing insurance, I wasn't like, my schedule wasn't packed because I wasn't trying to grow it. I was naturally just giving them a lot of lifestyle factors, a lot of other mitigating things. And I took people off medications more than I put people on. And my colleagues who had the offices around me were just like, I need to send you more. I need to send you more. I was like, I'm leaving. And it was kind of in that transition point that I learned about an entire realm or terminology of a practice that's dedicated to this. And then when you go deeper into functional medicine, you learn about all the other avenues that you have, a lot of like identifying what deficiencies are there in your body through blood work, through markers, through gut testing, hormone testing, and then just optimizing those factors for each person, like I said, to bring that balance, because that's what you're striving for. And despite knowing all of this, I myself, and this is what I think really ignited my passion into this, because I myself went through a period where I was not waking up rested. I was stressed and I didn't even know I was stressed. Sorry, I was just not waking up rested, and I was hungry all the time, and I was wondering like, what is this? And I would do my own blood markers again, like without knowing extensive panels, and just to be told from, my regular physicals, oh, nothing's wrong, maybe sleep a little bit more, things like that. And then as I got into it, I identified, well, realistically, my cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is being driven up because I was thinking I was doing all the right things. So things like restricted time eating, working out, but more in the HIIT category. So I'm waking up, I'm hungry from the night before. I'm not letting myself eat because I'm in a stricter window. I'm going to work to this high striped jobs, literally saving lives, and then coming home and being like, got to get my workout in. So then I go for this 45-minute HIIT class. And then, and then all the normal things, make dinner, spend time with husband, and this is before kids. And then you're just like, okay, now I got to sleep. And you're just like, and your body might be sleeping, but is it truly being allowed to go into that healing, restorative REM phases, deep sleep phases, in order for your to bring that balance for you to target the next day. And then that could either be the cause or it could be the side effect of something like, is your gut balance? Like I have a patient who is just like, I feel fine, but I'm tired all the time. And really all it came down to is her bowel movements.
Mm.
I don't know if all this is TMI, how much your listeners want to hear about poop, but we love
Give
talking
it to
about
me.
we love talking about poop. It's like a detoxification pathway. So I always say that if you have a daily poop, that's a really good, just like a baseline marker of good health. And you could take that even further. And again, might be TMI, but we even asked, like, I need to know, is it mushy? Is it formed? Is it overtly smelly? Like just all these conversations. And it's not that Western medicine knows this information and can't like, isn't paying attention to it. It's looking at things from a different lens that you're not naturally taught. And then the other part is having time to do it, because typically when you go to the doctors for some of these things, they just don't have the time. You're allocated 10 minutes. You got to tell them, I'm tired. They'll do the blood marker, your blood test come back, you'll get a call back saying you're fine. But it's just this interlinked, giving your time, falling against the grain, identifying these things. And I was kind of leaning in this direction, but my own health journey and all of this kind of really solidified that this is where I can help people. And since then, um, it's not that my impact has been in the millions, although one day I would love for it to be, but the people that I've been helping along the way just have had such profound changes, from like being able to conceive, being able to get through their day without 10 cups of coffee, feeling those emotional connections better. Because when you feel in balance, you can then have those better connections, just feel more happier with yourself. And that's really the goal, to build yourself a better future.
Ah, so much good stuff. I'm like writing down so many notes. So one of the things I thought
Sorry,
of,
I can also go on a soapbox for all of these things. So feel free to cut me off anytime.
no, absolutely not. I'm going to write my notes down because I do not want you to lose your train of thought. It made me think of something I say a lot to clients, coaching clients of mine, is that sometimes growth is slowing down. Like everyone thinks of growth as like, go, go, go. I need to be bigger and better. And sometimes it's the exact opposite to me. Like not reading as many books, not getting, consumed by self-help style books, or not pushing yourself to work out so hard, like that 100 mile an hour lifestyle that so many people live, it will catch up with you really quickly.
I know, especially women, because we're just, for those of us that have kids, being a mom is just a whole other ball game. And to add that into the mix of all the other stresses, and, most of the time, even just, if you are like premenopausal, so before you hit menopause, which is anywhere, 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it is, our hormones are so delicate. They're so reactive. And things like restricted time eating, intermittent fasting, whatever you call it, is most of the time not good. HIIT workouts, daily basis, if you've had a stressful day, most of the time not good. And I say most because that's the realm of medicine that we're in, is that each prescription, whether it's your lifestyle, your supplements, your diet, all of that is very unique to you, based on your story is a big part. And then your markers, your biochemical tests, your DNA, just all of it.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think of
women
it.
is so delicate. And so it's just looking at it with a different lens.
Yeah, I always try to be cognizant of my audience as women. I only work with women, but and I know that men have their own struggles with the go 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 lifestyle, all of that. But it is innately different for women in that
Yeah, there's
we.
research.
Well, my husband and I were just having this conversation the other day about like the traditional role of the mom in the household, like how it has been for hundreds of years, right? And I had listened to a podcast or something that had prompted the conversation. And I thought, yeah, like I understand because I am very much a strong, um, don't get in my way. Like I can be independent. You know, I was raised by a single mom, so part of that is just in my DNA. But I see too the importance of somewhat of the traditional role of the mom because mom when you don't really understand, I don't think, until you are a mom. And I'm sure you can, you know, think about your own parents and anyone that's listening that's not, I don't want to discount your outlook on all of this. But for me, my husband just doesn't have the reflex of motherhood like I do. Like, and it's just there are burdens that he would never be able to carry, even if I was like the full-time working mom and he stayed home with the kids. Like it's just it's I don't know, it's in our DNA. It's a very animalistic type of thing, but yet we take on so much more than women did 100 years ago. You know what I mean? It's just it's a very different world. I do think too, you mentioned like the fast pace of a traditional medical practice. And I have several friends who are nurse practitioners and doctors. And I think about from the stories they share with me and even my own experiences like a patient, it's like 10 to 15 minute increments. Like, tell me what's wrong. What do you want? Did you come here asking for something specific? Because then I can just be done that much faster. Not, oh, I'm having this pain. That is really difficult for, and again, not to discount traditional doctors, but they can't. They don't have the time. They've got 40 other patients they've got to get to. Then they have to chart. And I would think too, and I'm interested on what your take is on this from the perspective of someone who went to medical school to help people. When you get into that rat race of practice, I can only assume you kind of lose your passion for, or it taints it in some way of like really wanting to help people and not being able to. Have you experienced that?
100%. I hear about it all the time. You know, um you're just not taught some of these things. And when you and I think and physicians in particular, just because when our journeys are a whole lot longer and it starts a whole lot younger, um, you're just taught the medicine aspect. You come in there, most of the people, like if you asked all of us starting medical school, even though you're not supposed to answer this way of why do you want to do this, and your answer is to help people, it's some version of that. It's some version of wanting to serve, and that's at the root of what we want to do. But this is just the norm, is that you do this, then in your practice you take insurance because that's what's expected. And in order for you to take insurance, then now there's very few practices that are even individually owned. They're owned by these big companies, and these big companies are dictating how many people you see per day, which then takes away from, even like, say you wanted to see 20, they've now made it 40, so then reduces your time even more. And there's a whole lot of burnout going on, even when you don't, right? Even when this isn't your gig. But it's just it's because a lot of these payer sources are all unfortunately coming from like pharma industries and things like that. And so going with the grain is you is sick care, is you get
Mhm.
diagnosed with this. It's not about identifying it early, because it's not about realizing the questions you asked. um your blood sugar is high, so here's your medication for it. But why is it high to begin with? It's abnormal for like a 20-year-old to have diabetes, or it's not common, or it shouldn't be common for a 20-year-old to have diabetes. So how else can we help you? What else is imbalanced in your body that's now making your body not being able to process your food, the sugars you're providing it in the right way, just all of those things.
Yeah.
There's an epidemic of chronic disease, heart disease, cancers, and we should be getting healthier with all the resources we have, but the systems have to catch up with it to cover all of this stuff. And so you have to go against the grain to find yourself this well care.
Yeah, you know, and I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I had a call with a licensed therapist last week who was coming to me to ask about coaching because, and even though she's not an MD in this way, she's burned out by, yes, she takes insurance, yes, she works for multiple practices, and people are just coming to her because she's a name on a list, right? It's somebody her insurance covers, and so they're coming to her just like, fix me, help me, heal me, all of this stuff, which I'm sure is very similar with an MD, versus something like what you're doing, which is like a full concierge service. They're coming to you because they connect with your mission and what you're doing, and it's more of a personal connection. And I would only assume that the fulfillment that you get to have from helping people in this manner far exceeds what you could have been capable of doing at a traditional practice where you're seeing, people all the time. And I think about my own experience, or rather that of my husband. So his dad had a heart attack very young, relatively speaking, like before he was 50 or maybe early 50s. I can't remember exactly how old he
Yeah.
was. But for my husband, it was like a huge wake up call of, oh, okay, like this is in my family. No, I don't
Mhm.
live the same lifestyle, but I need to go ahead and start getting checked. And so that started this whole journey for he and I both of, we started with a hormone doctor in Atlanta where we did the whole, battery of testing and started some hormone replacement therapy and some like the whole thing that's now very popular. We started like 2019. And for him, it was getting a calcium test, however often you're supposed to get that, and regular blood draws and things like that, which gives him a sense of peace that had he not done that and knew that he was on the right path, like for like a perfect example, this morning he was taking photos of these small dollar amount checks to deposit in our account. And I'm like, what, like $5? I could just count. Like, he said, no, these are the rebates I'm getting on my life insurance for being so healthy at my last blood test. And I thought, oh my God, is that really a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. And he had like five checks, all small dollar amounts, but for the life of his life insurance policy, he'll get these little amounts back for a reward for being healthy. So there's
Right.
little things like that, which it's like a pep in his step of, yes, we may be spending out of pocket a lot more money than most people are because insurance doesn't cover that type of thing. But the ability to say we're taking our health seriously for our children, for ourselves, like all of those things is, I don't know. It's just, it's very different than going to like a yearly physical, which most people don't even do that,
Well,
or
most
I have a
people,
cold.
yeah,
Yeah.
so most people pass their annual physicals, but yet they're not feeling well. And that's the problem.
Mm,
So you and I might have the same like lifestyle, but if you're or same blood markers in a that comes up in a physical because it's only like I want to say like 19 markers, but if you're not feeling well, then that's something to pay attention to. Just like you said, when there's a good sense of anxiety, like these are little check light signals going off in our body. And so if you're not feeling well, that's your body trying to tell you something. And we're trying to identify what is our body trying to tell us before there's like stark signs, because that's when you're like, oh, I waited too long. Let's fix it early. And so that's the idea, whether it's I'm too tired or I have this nagging pain. Well, oh, well, you've had a CT and you've had this MRI, and they're fine, so you're fine. Or I'm losing hair and you're like, oh, well, it's age, that's okay. Well, I know what my hair used to be like, so this is not okay. And just whatever it is, I'm speaking slower than normal. This is a normal for me. I have brain fog. Well, yes, well, but all your tests are fine. Your CT looks okay, like your head looks okay. Well, it's just if it's bothersome to you, there's probably something underlying. Maybe it's just an emotional connection that we have to tease apart. Or it could be something more that you have to uncover because and you mentioned genes, right? We all come with our set of DNA, but there's something called epigenetics, whereas how these genes express themselves. And so the expression is directed by your environment, whether it's good or bad. So things like your diet, your exercise, your toxins, your just what you're surrounding yourself with. We talked about plants earlier, like all of that, just it's all of these express. So even if we have the same genes, even if two people have the same genes, you could be two very different people based on how they express themselves. And so even if there's a negative gene in any way, you can figure out how to change that epigenetics a little bit to better yourself. So in your husband's perspective, if genetically, if he's a higher risk for heart disease, then it would be he is going to have to work a little bit harder to ensure that he doesn't get that blockages in his blood vessels that could lead to his heart being damaged. And it would mean that him versus the person next to him is going to run their life a little bit differently, and their hearts could look the same, but he knows about it ahead of time. He's done the work. He's done that. I think you meant the CT calcium score, to look how open his arteries are to begin with, and to work on that. So it's just about it's empowering yourself, right? It's about learning enough about you to help direct how you then utilize and live your life, essentially.
Sure. I think about like as a nurse, the biggest theme of nursing is you're the patient advocate. Like you are the person in between the doctor and the patient in the hospital setting or wherever it may be, that's communicating from the patient to the doctor and sticking up for them, standing up for them, pushing back if you need to, those types of things. But I also think like, and even as a nurse, like I find myself like wavering on my own advocacy for myself. But I think a really important thing I want to bring up is we use the example of the heart rate, like the fast heart rate, and that's sending you to the doctor. That type of thing is a big sign, right? So like if you take a medication and it doesn't help, you don't feel good when your heart is racing like that. So you're going to be way more inclined to like push back and say, okay, no, something else is bigger. But what I find so often is it's these quieter symptoms that people feel. So you said like the sleeping or digestive issues, things like that. A lot of people will go to the doctor. They'll want a medication to stop it, to put a muzzle on it. It's messing with my quality of life. IBS or whatever it may be. I can't live normally. Make it stop. And then the medication may or may not make it stop. But if it doesn't, or if it does, they just leave it, right? But if it doesn't work, they have to now advocate for themselves and go back to that doctor who then says, your tests are fine, your scans are fine, you're fine, like go eat differently or something. But they don't really give them, for the most part, they don't give them the tools or the advice that they're really yearning for. So then they go to Google or then they go to their friends and they get overwhelmed. And before you know it, they are now like in a tizzy of something's wrong with me. No one will listen to me. I've tried all these things. And that's a problem in and of itself, is because if you start too many lifestyle changes at once, you don't know what worked. And that takes a lot of patience and time to process different things depending on what the symptom is. And so I think that's a really important thing to like double click on, is a lot of people listening to this may be in that place. And if you've never like considered functional medicine or didn't know what it was, or this is it, right? So whether it's reaching out to you or maybe they know someone else. So can people, because my audience, I do have some in Georgia, you're in Georgia. So if I in Alabama wanted to work with you across state lines, is that possible?
Yes, because I'm licensed in a few different states,
Okay.
including Alabama. But it's so concierge medicine, and the way I do this is because it's not it's about, it's a very small select group of patients and families, just because you want to have the ability to give them all the time that they need to tease apart all of these symptoms, to be available when they're sick. And so that's the kind of style that we have our practice in. Um, But, if you wanted to dig deep into any symptom you have, and just like what you said, there are a lot of like, so if you've gone to the doctor with a symptom and then you start Googling and finding advice, most of the time they're not really going to do you harm, but they're not going to be specific to you. Some things are going to be wellness focused anyway, but if you kind of just keep adding on, you might be spending your money and time onto something that might be just overall helping you, but might not be getting to the root cause of what the problem is. So it's really helpful to have someone look into it in a bit of detail, like dedicated to you, just so that it's like having a quarterback. It's like in your world, it's like having a coach, right?
Hmm.
I am people's medical coach essentially, right? Just helping them uncover these things. It's never going to be because it's not about quick fixes. I say this to my patients all the time. Like, I'm not giving you like drink this for 3 days and this is going to go away. It's going to be, because I do longevity medicine as well, right? So it's the functional piece and the longevity piece, because I'm trying to optimize not your lifespan, but your health span, your healthy years of living as opposed to your number of years of living.
Hmm.
And so it's setting you up for that. So no matter how young you are, and I wish, my parents are, again, like kudos to them. They did so well when, they were going against the grain to begin with, like McDonald's were coming, but they were like, that's not real food, don't eat it. But that my younger patients, and I do only see adults, but my younger patients, I'm envious of them. I'm like,
Yes. Same.
you're setting yourself up for such a great life. And I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of your parents or whoever it is that's directing you here, because this is the best time. Like, tomorrow is too late,
Yeah.
now is the best time to invest in your health as much as you would a house, a car, because what good is all of those assets without you being in your best self?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was just making my daughter's lunch yesterday and I thought, wow, she's gonna be like so much healthier than I am now when I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every single day for the entirety of my childhood, which that was my asking. Um, but I'm cutting up cucumbers and strawberries and blueberries and I'm making like this organic sandwich. Like I'm like, this kid doesn't even know. Like I was Chef Boyardee and ramen noodles and not I mean, we didn't know I didn't know any better. My mom didn't know any better. But yeah, like the generations, and I assume we're probably close in age, but I think all the generations after us, I'm like, you're so lucky. Even like I work with a lot of college girls, and I'm thinking if I had a coach at that time
Yeah,
of my life, there is no telling
what
what
I
I would have been capable of. Um, I love, what I heard in that description for you was like a very family style practice, in that I assume you're not only treating them but also teaching them so that they can then spread that into their family, whether it's their partner if you don't see their partner, or their kids and their lifestyle. So it's all encompassing, I would assume. So tell me what it looks like to work with you from the client's perspective, like the whole start, interview, meeting, and onwards.
Yeah, so, the reason why we talk about bringing families on board is, some of these changes that you just talked about, right? Like you're incorporating fruits, vegetables, and wholesome meals, right? Imagine if one of you were doing that in your household and the other person wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, and all the ultra processed foods. So we talk about ultra processed foods, things that are don't look like the original. So something like a potato chip, if potatoes aren't the number one ingredient, or one of the few ingredients, and it's no longer really a potato chip anymore, it's a mixed bag of mushed together corn and stuff, right?
Oils. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the reason I love it when, like, I have individual patients who don't bring on their families because they just can't get their husband or their wife versa to commit or convinced, right? But it's just even more special when both people join, or even if when they bring their adult children on board, because then if you're all under one roof, especially, it's about kind of making these changes together. And also in that same aspect, like if one person's health span is going to be better than the other, then you're kind of leaving one person behind. I think about me and my husband, like if anytime I'm on a health journey or I find something new, and this is an ever evolving field, both in the field itself or in medicine and the health world in general, right? Where we have to be open to changing with evidence, with resources, with technology, right? Like all these things that are available to us. So if I found something new or beneficial, I'm always trying to get him on board, because I don't want to be healthy without him being healthy. Like the kids need both of us. Like I don't want to be left, like
Yeah.
all those things. And so to answer your question of what does it look like, for people that I don't organically know through referrals or anything, we do meet and greets, and I have like this session with them to introduce, for both of us to be introduced to each other, to make sure that we're all going to be a right fit. And then we talk about what their major health goals are, because it's all about goals. It's about setting, long-term goals for things. And then we really just get onto a program with us, and we do a lot of testing if we need. We do a lot of discussions. Like all of our visits are up to an hour if you need. They're as frequently as the problem dictates. So if you're if you have higher needs problems, I can see you frequently. If you don't, and then we can space you out. It also changes month to month or problem to problem. And this phase of life, if you need to see me weekly, then that's how frequent you will be, versus spacing it out. At the end of the day, all of my care with each person is very individualized. All the testing is individualized. It isn't like you come on to Extend Medical, and this is a 10-page of all the testing you need, and this is the 10-page of all the supplements you need. It's not like that. It's about, so if you're, whether you're tired, like first of all, it's about hearing your story. I need your
Mm-hmm.
story as early as, just like you said, like single parent, like what is it that you ate when you were little? Like how, because all those things, somewhere or the other, might have an impact. And you probably identify these even in your coaching business, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it can escalate. And so it's just about teasing all of that apart. So it's a very individualized, very one-on-one. So I see all my patients myself. We utilize allied health practitioners for all the other stuff, because um, exercise, nutrition, and keeping you on track, whatever that track is that you and I have come up to be. So we use people for that, but all your health visits are just with me. And they're as long as an hour if you need them to. Any sort of sick care or any other services we organize for you. It's just a full kind of give you a let's bring you back to balance kind of practice. And then all the longevity pieces are just an added bonus to, if there isn't an active health problem, then we go straight into the longevity piece with utilizing all the high-end technology and testing and keeping you as young as you want to be. And
I
that's the
love
key. It's what you want to be.
Yeah, I love when you said like a health coach or a medical coach, because that's definitely got my attention, but I think that is easier to understand for a lot of people, that you can cover a lot of different things. And when you talked about having an hour long appointment so that you could hear the story, I immediately thought of my daughter's neurologist, who is also an epileptologist, which I didn't even know that was a thing. Um, I can so distinctly remember her sitting down, like all of our appointments, she sits with me for like 15 to 20 minutes of just listening, letting me pour into her, whether we're virtual or in person. And I remember that being a relief. Is not, it doesn't, it's not good enough for what that felt like, and I can't even think of a better word for that. But to have someone, if you're in a place in your life where you don't have answers and you are anxious, worried, upset, to have someone who has a medical background, who has the knowledge to listen to you. And not just that, but not to feel like they know I mean, I've had experience with physicians before, and I know people listening probably have too, where it's just like, oh, I know exactly what you need. Like, you need to do this. Like, before you even finish your sentence, don't finish. I know what you need. Here you go. As opposed to, no, wait, that's not what I wanted to say. Right.
Mhm.
And so just the idea of having up to an hour to sit and talk about my medical and life longevity style goals, I cannot imagine how wonderful that must be. So, okay, if I live out of Georgia, I know you said a couple of states, is the virtual an option, insurance? I'm just trying to think of all the details of someone who might be
Sure.
looking to work with someone.
Yeah, so we are an entirely virtual practice. A lot of our patients are either, even if they're on the ground, we want to eliminate wait times. We're trying to be as current to you as possible. So we're entirely virtual. There are some patients who are super local that love to meet in person, and so we arrange things like that at our outsourced offices. But yeah, entirely virtual, and we don't take insurance for our care, so it's just a membership fee. And we talked about this already with insurance-based care. Insurance is typically covering reactive services, and so it's about sick care down the road as opposed to the preventative care. And there's a lot of colleagues and we're actively trying to change kind of legislations, things like that, so that it recognizes this preventative care option. But at the moment, none of, like, minimal number of testings are covered by that. Our blood tests, however, those could be run through insurance if you have
Okay.
them. And typically, because we take such a long time with your stories, there's enough symptoms that can most of the time get all of those covered. And then if not, there's cash prices for even our extensive panels of blood work that we might do for you. And then all of your results are reviewed, analyzed, even if they're normal or, that's not the answer, we still have a call, we go through them, and we really make sure that we're available to our patients to keep each other in check. And so the best way to get in contact would be to either send us an email or contact us through our website, and then we can get you scheduled in for a meet and greet initially if you like, and figure out kind of where all your pain points are, or just get you kickstarted onto your wellness journey.
I have so many questions I want to ask for myself, but I'm going to wait until after we finish recording because I'm interested.
Tell me if that was
Okay.
clear enough though, because I want your, your audience to get
Well,
to
I mean,
get
I'm
the right answer.
thinking like the first thing I would ask, and I don't know how much of this is just like obviously would be covered in your like initial consultation, but you mentioned membership fee. That's very similar to what how the program is set up with the doctor that we currently use for what's the term I'm thinking? Anti-aging. So you pay a monthly membership or yearly annual membership of some sort. And then when I would come to see you, however often needed, I'm paying per session or just that membership
No,
covers that?
the membership would cover all your visits with me and anyone in my team. So whether it's you need nutritional direction, exercise direction, testing direction, health coaching direction, like all of that. So all of those services are covered. The additional things are just anything additional that I would essentially need to cover. So it's or it's just what the test. So it's if you need a stool test, then it would be whatever the stool test company, and we depending on your so it's all very depending, because depending on what the problem is, that would be the company that we would use. And then say toxins are a big thing in today's world because we are unfortunately exposed to an abnormal amount of them. And so if you need that, then it would be whatever, it's just through that company, but we coordinate all of it. It's never like, it's not like you're being sent to 10 different places, because that's the whole idea. It's taking away the pain of healthcare from you, and we're going to be coordinating it all. And
Well, go
sorry,
ahead.
I was going to say one more thing, because I thought it was interesting when you mentioned, you talked about the generation above us and saying that, we're doing all these things, but it's also because the food industry has changed so much.
It's very
And so
different.
the food industry has changed so much that our moms didn't have to worry so much the way that we have to worry about the next generation. I love bringing up this example is ketchup. Ketchup used to be just tomatoes, sugar, and vinegar. And I urge you guys to go into your pantry and look at your bottle of ketchup and to see how many ingredients there are on that list. And something as simple as it used to come in glass bottles and now it comes in plastic bottles. It doesn't matter how much BPA a plastic bottle is. There's going to be microplastics in there that's leaching into your food and water. And so it's just, we all have to, just like we have to work harder at our work, we're going to have to work harder at our health, because unfortunately, our surrounding is trying to work against us. So you have to think, even when you think you're doing something healthy, because the food labeling industry is also getting smarter. They're trying to say it's healthy, whereas it's not. Like, turn it to the back, look at the
The
ingredients, look,
marketing, yeah.
because
Yeah, like
marketing is getting
a lot of
fancy.
stuff will
So
say like high protein, and you look at it and it's like 5 grams of protein. You're like, wait a minute, that's not the same thing. And you're
mhm.
right. And I think I saw it on social media somewhere where it was, and I do this all the time. Like, well, I ate it as a kid, she'll be fine. Well, that's what that whatever it was I saw on social media was targeting, was that the people who have that statement on
Yeah.
repeat. And I don't remember what the example was, but it was something like the Pop Tarts of, 1995 are not the same Pop Tarts as 2025. They are very like comparing the two. So while yes, no, we ate it and we're fine, we ate it. It was different. It was completely different. And I think the food industry really benefits from us not realizing that and just continuing to dole things out. So I love that you pointed that out. Um, Okay, so blood testing you covered. Sometimes insurance will cover that. You talked about that. So yeah, I think you used the example of a stool test. So the testing that would be required for whatever treatment is happening, are those, even though I know the membership for seeing you isn't covered by insurance, but testing, is there a way to have those things covered, or is that all out of pocket?
Yeah, most of the time, because they're all in the preventative care category, most of the
Gotcha.
time thing is not insurance covered. Um, the blood tests are the only things that we can push to have insurance cover it. I mean, there's like even the membership fee or any of the testings, like there's bills that you could take and present it, and you could certainly use your FSA, HSA. So that's a really great way of utilizing your pre-tax dollars to
Mm.
cover all this, because it is still healthcare and there is medical necessity. It just has to be uncovered that there is a need for it. But in terms of insurance care, it's entirely this sick care driven phenomenon, which we're almost trying to not get you to use. So we don't want you to fall into that category, to fall into that sick care. We want to keep you out of that. I'll give you a good example. I have a patient who so is not diabetic, but is super fit, exercising, eating right, all doing all things. And he, when we tested, so we do extensive markers. So typically they'll do screening for your diabetes in a annual checkup. They'll do something called a hemoglobin A1C, which is so what that actually is, I don't know if this is too specific, but it's a average of the percent of your blood cells that's coated in sugar. So there's, and then here's the other thing with functional longevity medicine, like there's normal levels, which is based on 95% of the population, but we don't know if they were healthy. And then there's what we strive for, which is optimal levels.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gone through this being told he was normal, I guess, or not diabetic and just borderline pre-diabetic, but it's okay. But when you check things like a fasting glucose or a fasting insulin, which really is a much more sensitive marker, those were deranged. And so the good thing to do in that case, because he otherwise is so healthy, he's actually in like doing a lot of sports and working out, was to see, well, what is happening in your body that's making this 3-month average off, or that's causing these derangements. And we have, it's available to us. Why don't you wear a blood glucose monitor for 10 days, doesn't, because most of us in our eating really don't vary that much. So
Mm-hmm.
doing it for like 10 days every so often is good. And I do that for myself just to see how things are. But he would do that. But in order for insurance, so he's on the track. So had he left this or had we not uncovered this, he's on the track to be diabetic, right?
Okay.
But we've uncovered this early. Now, insurance, if you are diabetic, if you're overweight, if you meet all these criteria, will cover a continuous blood glucose monitor. But in his case right now, because we've identified him in this pre-range or this early stage, we're trying to prevent that. They're like, no, you don't meet criteria.
Mm.
So this is the problem that we're running into. So should you wait till insurance covers it?
Right.
Well, no, because that's what you're trying to avoid. So you wear
Mm-hmm.
this now. And then he thankfully was in a position where he was able to. And a lot of these things, they're thankfully just getting more accessible with time. Like blood glucose monitors used to be so expensive. Now you can get them for like $100 per piece. And, you know, that sure that might be expensive for some, but I'm saying it's over time because it's being utilized more. It is getting cheaper. The importance of it is being highlighted. Glucose, your blood glucose is the core of your metabolism, and preserving something like that is the core of preserving all your interconnected systems. And yeah, again, I could go on soapboxes, but because he wore this, we actually identified that he was having periods where his blood glucose was too low, and that can drive up your body from creating its own glucose. And then because I was like, well, no, you told me there wasn't more of this going on, let me like go back and dig a little bit more. And then we were able to uncover why he was having these lows to begin with and fix that. And none of this is today tomorrow, right? And then 6 months from now we were able to get his numbers down because we were able to uncover what was actually contributing to that.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, so too little carbohydrates, if you're doing too much, could be a problem.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Too much cardio could be a problem.
Mm.
It's it's
Yeah.
about identifying what's right for you. Like, and we uncover people will come in thinking they've got one problem, but when I take a step back and explain it to them, we actually, they'll, just like you said, they might come in with it. They're like, I know you do hormone testing. I want to do hormone testing, and we'll talk about it. And I'm like, well, actually, I think your gut might be the reason your hormones might be imbalanced. So why don't we test your gut first, fix that, and then wait to test your hormones? Because if I test your hormones now, I already know it might be off based on what you're telling me. But if I check
Mm-hmm.
your gut and stabilize that, I might be able to stabilize that before we test them. And then you can just see that it's improved and you might be even feel better from that. So it's really just giving you time to hear your story and then uncover it. Because I mean, literally it happened to me. I
Yeah.
was I was, doing all these things and I was like, something must be off. Well, everything's okay. And then go to find out, well, just, you could talk to me after the most stressful day and I would be completely fine. You wouldn't know I had the most stressful day, but my
Mm-hmm.
guess who was taking the beating? My body. And
Mm-hmm.
so then it's like, well, we talk about things like toxins, all of theirs. There's a bucket of things that we can do something about, right? Like, so what we're trying to identify is the things that we can do something about. If your life is stressful and your work is stressful, assuming you're not going to get rid of both of those buckets, we can't take that away. But if we take away any imbalances, any toxins, any deficiencies, think about reducing anywhere from 30 to 50% of the stress off your shoulder. How much easier is that to carry the weight? But
Mm-hmm.
you got to identify what those factors are. And so that's just what we're aiming to do or hoping to do. So, and then it's about identifying, you want to lift it off in order, like just like a seesaw, right? Like you got to lift the right bucket off first. Otherwise, you're really going to cause an imbalance without rebalancing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of detective work. I think about, one of the things that came to mind was like control your controllables. I hear that phrase all the time, and that's exactly what I heard you say. I also, in my own coaching practice of when I start with new clients, so I always have them do an intake form. And I always have them fill out like, what are your goals? Like, what are your three top goals? What does it look like to achieve those goals? And then I always say, I kind of caveat that with our first call. And I'm like, that's great. I'm so happy you put that. I'm so happy you thought about it. Now let's dig into that because more than likely, those are not the real goals. Those are just very surface levels, the things you feel safest saying out loud, the things that are top of mind that someone has, brought to your attention or is affecting. It is almost always, and I want to say always, but I'm going to give a little grace for that, much deeper than that, right? It is a much deeper, you have to dig through, you have to uncover, unpile, detective, all of the things. And I also think like having this conversation, I know I said it earlier, like I will get on a soapbox and at some point I'm going to have to wrap this up. But I think about the healthcare system and how infuriating that is when it's top of mind, when you're thinking about it, or it's part of your, daily life for you, because you're having to always deal with this and talk about it. But the financial privilege that's necessary to be able to overcome the healthcare system is really sad that it takes that to be able to take care of yourself. Because for anyone listening to this and anyone out there who does not have that level of privilege, the amount of expendable income to be able to put on yourself, they have no choice, and it takes so much more for them to and organic food and healthier food is way more expensive. Like obviously this is a big problem, and I'm so happy to hear that you guys are doing what you can, uh, boots on the ground legislation wise. Words are hard. But I also, you mentioned something about taxes. So is something like this tax deductible on your personal taxes falling under healthcare as like that membership? Can you file that as something like that? Can you do that?
Yeah, I think there is a healthcare category, and I think how much you can file is based on your own income and a
Okay.
percentage of it. So it will for sure contribute to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Good to know.
And for the people that are listening that don't have the ability to kind of delve into this cash-based services, and or don't have the ability to use their insurance, you there are what ways that you can still optimize for yourself. So the first thing is advocate for yourself, even with, so if you're going to your primary care and they're the only thing that's there with insurance covered, then, and if you don't feel like your symptom is being heard, then is going at it more than just the one time. And then the other thing from a food perspective is there are small changes that you can make from even a dietary perspective that can go a long way. If you were to ask me what's one thing that I would love to that you could cut out to save yourself years, is probably refined sugar. And
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate thing is it's hidden in so many things. Um, like for example, you say, well, I've heard probiotics is good or prebiotics is good. I'm going to eat yogurt every day. It is so hard to go to the grocery store and buy a yogurt without any added sugars. There are things like marketed being like 100% natural fruit sugars or 100% fruit, but if you turn it over, there's still added sugar in there. It's just like all of these things. And actually, if you think about it from a cost perspective, it's probably cheaper to buy the plain yogurt than it is to buy the one with fruit. And then you
Sure.
could take your own fruit and add it to the yogurt yourself. So it's like some of these small changes are going to go a long way for you. And even just moving, that's another one,
Mm-hmm.
just movement, some sort of movement will add health years to yourself. But it is very, very unfortunate that going for this root cause approach is as costly as it is. And yeah, little by little, it is being changed. Like, for example, just like I talked about the continuous glucose monitors, the companies that make the more expensive ones have now come out with a cheaper over-the-counter ones. And so the people, as this movement grows, which we're so excited about, like people taking their health more seriously. I don't know if maybe it's the people that you're surrounding yourself with and you're
Yeah,
in your,
maybe.
but as the movement grows, and but no, I think overall, like a lot of younger people are being empowered. Like I think about my younger cousins, even they're talking about my cousin was like, hey, have you heard of calisthenics? I go work out at the gym. I was like, it's freezing outside. And, I would never have thought about all of this when I was his age. And yeah, so as this movement grows, we're going to be forced into where all of this is covered. This is norm. Maybe insurance doesn't even cost that much. So you have all this money that you can spend on well care. And whatever it is, it's going to change. But unfortunately, that is down the road. And there's a bucket of us that need to act now, like I said. And
Mhm.
it does have to come with a caveat is if you're able.
Yeah.
But you know, it's yeah,
It's just the
it's
world we live in. Yeah.
it's
It's the world we
unfortunate.
live in, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate, but it is, yeah, if you know better, do better. If you can, do that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so again, I could keep going for like another
Yes.
hour, 2 hours and talk about all this stuff, but we do need to wrap up for the sake of time. So, one of the things I mentioned this to you before we started recording, I always ask everyone to share something from their hype list, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So, I called it the Hype Squad because the overall message I was trying to send was to brag about yourself, be more full of yourself. Those two phrases in and of themselves were have always been and still kind of are. I'm trying to rewrite it for myself. Very cringy. Like, oh, you're not supposed to be full of yourself. You're not supposed to brag. And in my coaching practice, I started an assignment called the Hype List, which was a way to write down all the things you're super proud of and to remind yourself often to kind of build yourself, hype yourself, if you will. And so that's where it came from. So every episode, I ask every woman I have on to tell me something they want to brag about or be full of themselves so that they can be hyped and hopefully carry that into the rest of your day. So I would love to hear something that you want to brag about.
Um,
Do you
yeah, that
cringe? Do you cringe?
I was like, "Ooh, you want me to like big up myself?" That's
See,
a tough
right?
one.
That's it.
Um,
That's the point. Yeah.
I think I think yeah, like in this current phase that I'm in, I've got two young kids, and I think my bragging probably is getting through my days with showing up for them, showing up for my husband, showing up for my business, showing up for my work. And I do it all and both sides of it because I truly feel content when I see the impact I make on just even one person's life. Whether it's restoring energy, whether it's making them feel better in themselves, losing the weight that they want, or, whatever it is, it's so gratifying to
Hmm.
be given the ability to do that, thanking my patients for trusting in me for that. But I have to be proud of, because you never feel like you do it all, right? I feel like we're never, at least I don't feel like you're doing everything as well as you can. But I think I'm going to brag about my at least greatest attempt in all these factors to get it right.
I love that. That makes me think initially of unlocking fulfillment versus achievement and how that is such a big thing in my life and in my family of if if is it fulfilling or does it feel like an achievement that I'm supposed to check off my list? I saw some, I'm sure it was on social media, of Shonda Rhimes doing a commencement speech maybe, and one of the things she said was I can't do it all. Like if I'm killing it on Thursday night primetime television, I'm sacrificing something with my kids. If I'm killing it at my kids' ballet recital, I'm sacrificing something for my work. Like it is always a give and take. So I love that you shared that because I think that's so relatable, especially for working moms. And I also want to point out like that moment, and I want to do this for a second, just of kind of calling this out, like you are very successful. You like I look at you and I think, "Oh my God, she has her stuff together. Like this is she's doing it." And even you cringed when I said brag about yourself. And I think it really brings home the message that I'm constantly trying to send or promote even for myself, because at the end of the day, like I'm the number one, like I'm coaching myself in so much of this. It is so hard for us to acknowledge the things that we're doing right, whether it's practicing gratitude or bragging. No one's immune to it. I think women more than men, I would say, I think safely struggle with that the most. So thank you, even though it was a little cringy, like you
Thank
had
you
that
for
cringe
asking me to do
moment.
it. I really had to
Yeah.
think for a moment. Like, I'm not gonna lie. My first thought was, what is there to brag about? And it's a
That is
tough one.
most people's reaction. And I think it's so relatable to anyone listening. Like, that's hard for every woman for the most part, unless it's practice. And I even said to you before we started recording, I don't want you to practice or have an answer premeditated, because the whole point of it is to kind of catch you off guard. Like, oh, what am I? It's like, when people ask about hobbies, like, oh, I don't have any hobbies, or tell me about yourself. Like all those cringy questions of like, oh my God, what do you want to know? Like, tell me, give me a yes or no question that I can answer, right? So I just wanted to point that out because I feel like that is something that happens a lot, and I wanted to mention that. But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I so appreciate it. This has been lovely. Thank you for coming and getting hyped with me. I'm going to share all the ways to find you and to work with you in the show notes of this episode, but you're welcome back anytime you want to come and talk about any of this stuff. I love it. I love it. So thank you, Dr. Paul. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's been great. Hopefully, I've hyped a few people to get on a wellness journey.
Me, if nobody else. So one win is good, I think, and hopefully more. So thank you to everyone listening. Thank you for getting hyped with us. Be kind to yourselves, and we'll see you next time.